right, hello everybody. Today I'm going to walk us through lesson 18 from our trees unit. You should already have a paper copy of this assignment that you got in class, but if you don't have a paper copy, then open up the digital copy and you can just follow along. I am going to go over what all the right answers are. However, if you feel like you can do this independently, I invite you to do it independently. There's a reading and it's right here, and you should be able to open a digital copy of the reading and then do the assignment independently. But if you feel more confident hearing me read it and go over it, then by all means, listen to me and let's go over it together. So I'm pulling up lesson 18 right now. If you don't have the paper copy handy, then get the digital copy ready to go and you can open it with Cami and then write directly on it. Okay, so it starts with a review, some stuff that we've already covered. So it says the plant removes blank from the atmosphere during photosynthesis to make blank and oxygen. If the plant doesn't need the glucose immediately, enzymes will join the glucose molecules together. That's called dehydration synthesis to form the storage molecule blank or the building block molecule called blank. So the first thing we want to go is the first one, the plant removes. So let's think about global warming, and the plant sucks up carbon dioxide. So it's sucking up carbon dioxide. So right there, let's see, I'm going to do a text box. And I'm just going to write CO2. Remember that from our NASA video, all the red that was swirling around, that's carbon dioxide. And the plants, they suck that up when there are leaves on the trees in the summertime. You also blew bubbles into a test tube. That was your carbon dioxide that you were putting out, and the plant sucked it up. So the plant removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis to make, and the thing that it makes is our sugar. So let's do the fancy word for sugar is glucose. That's the specific sugar that plants make. We also have other sugars that you've all heard of, like sucrose is the sugar that's in Kool-Aid or that you bake with. Lactose is the sugar that's in milk, and maltose is the sugar that's in malt shakes. So those are all different types of sugars, but glucose is the one that we really need to know for this unit. If the plant doesn't need the glucose immediately, enzymes will join the glucose molecules together to form the storage molecule. And that molecule is called, we learned last time, you might not remember it, that's starch, everybody. It's a whole bunch of glucose molecules put together. Maybe you remember that the glucose molecules are all upright in the starch molecule, but in a molecule called cellulose, which is the building block, that's the next one. I'll put that right here, cellulose. That's the one where the glucose molecules, every other one is flipped upside down. So the cellulose molecule looks like this. A glucose molecule, a starch molecule, all the glucose molecules are standing upright. All right, next one. When carbon has been removed from the atmosphere and stored in a tree or a plant, the process is called carbon sequestration. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to highlight that word because that is a word we really, really, really need to know. That's definitely going to come up on your test. Did that work? There we go. Okay, this is important because high levels of carbon and carbon dioxide are leading to global, and I bet you know the answer, but let's do it together, global climate change. So there's a C already there, so I'm going to CLIMA, climate. And then over here, I'm going to write change. There we go. Global climate change. Can you read that okay? So global warming is what a lot of people call it, although it's not always warming. Sometimes it's cooling depending on where you live. Okay. So moving on, it says, now begin reading the next article, macromolecules reading number 2. So we're going to have some questions to answer as we read. So I'll read it first, each little section I'll read, and then we'll come back and answer questions. So this first section is called A Bit More About Mitosis. This is a DNA molecule. I wonder if it says it down there. It doesn't say that, but that's a DNA molecule that we're looking at next to us. It says, we now know that plant cells use cellulose, the one that looked like this with the glucose molecules, during cytokinesis, that's when a cell divides, as part of cell division. But what do plants need when their cell nuclei divide during mitosis? You may have heard of DNA before and that all your traits are spelled out in that DNA. We're going to have a whole unit on DNA coming up, so we'll learn a lot more about it. Plants are no different. Where is DNA located? Well, it's in the nucleus of all cells. So when those nuclei divide, and that's called mitosis. So when the cell just pinches in, that's called cytokinesis. But when the nucleus divides, it's got a special name. It's called mitosis. So when the nuclei divide in the process of making two cells from one, the DNA has to have replicated or copied itself so that each new cell has a full set of DNA. And again, if living things didn't do this, they couldn't grow. What elements make up DNA? Well, there are 5 elements found in DNA: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Wait a minute, we've seen those before. Those are in the carbohydrates. Glucose is C6H12O6, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. But DNA also has nitrogen and phosphorus. And it says, see the diagram to the right. And it shows you hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus for all the different elements that are in DNA. Wow, is that a complicated, scary molecule? We'll learn about it a little later, and you'll find out it's really easy. All right, so where does a cell get more of these elements to make more DNA? If the DNA has to be copied every time a cell divides, where do we get more of these elements? You already know where plants get the carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen atoms they need during photosynthesis, but what about nitrogen and phosphorus? Where are they getting those things? Okay, I'm going to pause there. Let's see if we can answer some of the questions from this section. So, which macromolecule must be replicated or copied for mitosis to occur? Well, that's the molecule that's in DNA. In the nucleus, that would be DNA. It needs to be replicated. Which atoms of this macromolecule are not found in carbohydrates? So remember, the carbohydrates are things like the sugars, starch, cellulose, and they all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So what are the 2 elements not found in those? We would say nitrogen and phosphorus. Those are the 3 that are not found. So I'll type them in here quick. Nitrogen and, oops, I'm not spelling very well, phosphorus. There we go. All right, next, we're on to the next section. The next section says, what about proteins? Now, we just learned about proteins in class. How are they formed? We mentioned in the last lesson that enzymes join molecules of glucose together in order to build starch or cellulose. Enzymes are made of proteins. Proteins are another important molecule that living things produce when they make cells. We'll talk about it. But you built a protein. You built a bunch of amino acids, and you built a protein in our class during the model building lab. Proteins speed up different types of chemical reactions that occur in cells. Many of them help the cells of the organism carry out the functions it needs to perform to stay alive. In our liver lab, you saw the enzymes breaking apart the hydrogen peroxide, and then you see the bubbles forming when the enzyme is pulling the hydrogen peroxide apart. There are around 100,000 different kinds of proteins that plants and animals produce. They are very large molecules, the largest in the universe, actually, and they share some important similarities with complex carbohydrates. One important similarity is that they are made of chains of smaller subunits of atoms. In proteins, those smaller subunits of atoms are called amino acids. You built them in the model building lab. There are only 20 different kinds of amino acids that cells of any living thing can produce. Compare the chemical structure of each of the 20 amino acids in the image to the left. I bet you're like, what? I can't do that. I can't compare them. You can. Let's look. What does each amino acid have in common with all the other amino acids? On one of the images found in the lesson 18 SAS, circle the part of the amino acid that is similar to all other amino acids. On the same image, place a box around the part of the amino acid that is different from the other amino acids. Now notice the atoms. Can you locate 2 atoms found in amino acids that are not found in carbohydrates? All right, let's take a look, because these are so intimidating. I can't see anything in that, KJ. I don't know anything about molecules. Well, you do. You've done the model building lab. So here's an N and 3 H's. So an N is the blue one, and then the H's are the white ones. And wait a minute, I see this blue. I see that in this one. Oh, and there it is in this one. Wait a minute. It's in every single one of the 20. KJ, they all have that in common. That wasn't that hard. All right, let's keep looking. I see green. They all seem to have the green, and that's where the carbon was double bonded. Do you remember you made the thing like that? Double bonded to the oxygen. There it is. All of them have that green in common. Okay, I see this black area. It's just a carbon bonded to a single hydrogen. They all seem to have that. So it seems like they all have this whole section on top in common. But wait a minute, the red sections, those aren't the same. Those are all different. So it looks like the blue, black, and green are the same in all amino acids. And then the part of every amino acid that's a little bit different, that's these red sections. Oh, yeah. And KJ, in our notes, you called the red sections R groups. That's the part of every amino acid that's different. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the SAS and see the trees worksheet, and let's see if we can answer the questions. What is an example of a protein? Did they give us an example of a protein? I don't know if they did. Let's see. I don't know that they gave us an example of a protein, did they? Oh yeah, an enzyme. There we go. An enzyme is an example of a protein. You worked with a special enzyme called catalase in the liver lab. So we'll just write enzyme right here is an example of a protein. But one that you know and you worked with was the one that was called catalase, and it broke down the hydrogen peroxide and made it bubble. Right. Generally, what is the function of proteins? Well, let's go back and see if we can figure that out. Proteins are another important molecule that living things produce when they make new cells. Here we go, the highlighted area, the italicized area. Proteins speed up different types of chemical reactions that occur in cells. That seems like that's important. Many of them help the cells of the organism carry out the functions it needs to perform to stay alive. So let's say it speeds up different types of reactions. So proteins in the form of enzymes, proteins speed up different types of reactions. I gotta spell reactions right. There we go. Okay, number 5. What are the subunits or the building blocks of proteins called? Well, there's 20 of them, ladies and gentlemen, and I see it right there on the screen. Figure 1 says the 20 amino acids. Oops, that didn't work. Amino, and then over here, acids. There we go. There's 20 amino acids. These are the 20 amino acids. Okay, number 6 says, study figure 1, that's this image up here, on the previous page. What does each amino acid have in common with all other amino acids? Oh, we just talked about that. Remember the blue, the black, and the green? On one of the images, circle the part of the amino acid that is similar. Okay, don't forget to circle it. So I'm going to grab a pencil here, and maybe I'll do this hot pink color. So one more time. It says circle the part of the amino acid that is similar to all the other different amino acids. So I'm just going to pick one. I'll pick the first one. And I'm going to, I wonder if I could do a shape. Maybe a shape is better. I'll do a pink circle around it. There we go, because it said to circle it. Let's see if I can make that work. Hey, that's the circle. Okay, that's the part that's the same in all of them. So then it says, on the same image, place a box around the part of the amino acid that is different. So that's all the red sections. So let me change colors. I'll do, well, it's not a different enough color. Let's try purple. There we go. And we're going to place a box around it. So I'm going to place a box, see if I can make it work here, around the part of every amino acid that's different. And who remembers what that is called, the part of every amino acid that's different? It's called the what group? Who remembers? R group. That's it. Okay, number 7. Now notice the atoms. Which atoms do all amino acids have in common with carbohydrates? Okay, so carbohydrates have C, H, and O. Let's see if we can find C, H, and O in here. I see a C, I see an H, and I see some O's. Well, it has all that. So let's write that down first. So we're going to do the text box. It has C. Can I make it tab over? Let's see if I can make it right. There we go. H and tab a few times over. A little bit awkward for me to do this online. And O, it has C, H, and O. That's what it has in common. But now number 8 says, can you locate 2 atoms found in the amino acids that are not found in carbohydrates? What are they? Well, what's not found? Oops, I didn't need to go up there. I can go back up here. What's not found in carbohydrates? Carbohydrates, my lights just went out. There we go. Carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. What is in here? Let's look at this one. What's in here? Go away. That's not found in a carbohydrate. Well, I see an N right there. So nitrogen. And do we see anything else? I see a nitrogen. Looking for other things. Nitrogen. That's the only thing I see so far. Nitrogen. Let's see if we can find one other element. Oh, wait a minute. Look what I found down here. There's an S down there. That's sulfur. That's interesting. That's not in carbohydrates. Okay, so we can write that. 2 atoms that are not found. So one is nitrogen, and the other, let's see if I can tab over, the other one is sulfur. Those are not found in carbohydrates. Okay, let's move on to the next section. What do nitrogen, phosphorus, where am I here? Hold on. What do nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers do for plants? So sometimes those fertilizers are called NPK fertilizers. In addition to being needed for proteins and amino acids and DNA, nitrogen promotes plant growth. It is associated with leafy vegetative growth. It's part of every protein in the plant, so it's required for virtually every process, from growing new leaves to defending against pests. Nitrogen is also part of a chlorophyll molecule, which gives plants their green color and is involved in creating food for the plant through photosynthesis. Lack of nitrogen, if it's missing, shows up as general yellowing or chlorosis of the plant. The plant looks yellow. That's interesting. So yellow plants are low in nitrogen? Because nitrogen can move around in the plant, older growth often yellows more than the new growth. Interesting. So the nitrogen just moves to a new location. In addition to being found in DNA, phosphorus is involved in the metabolic processes responsible for transferring energy. So remember, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It has a molecule that's called ATP for phosphorus. And that's what our energy is made out of ATP, phosphorus. So it transfers energy from one point to another in the plant. It's also critical in root development and in flowering. Okay. Finally, plants also need large amounts of an element called potassium, which on the periodic table that's behind me right here, it's abbreviated with a K. Don't ask. That's because the P is for phosphorus, so potassium is a K. Potassium is found by itself, not in combination with other atoms in a molecule. Potassium helps regulate plant metabolism and affects water pressure regulation. Oh yeah, hypertonic and hypotonic, that's about potassium. Remember that plants want a hypotonic, hypo-hippo, they want to have lots of water pressure, that's good for them. And if they're in salt water, it makes them hypertonic and they wilt. That's what we're talking about here. It's also important for good root development. Good root development. For these reasons, potassium is critical to plant stress tolerance. There we go. All right, let's take a look at the questions here. So number 10. Oh, sorry, we missed one on number 9. I didn't even notice. How many different amino acids are used as the building blocks of all proteins? Well, that's 20, everybody. 20 amino acids. All right, number 10. Which element is needed for proteins and amino acids, DNA, and plant growth? Well, that would be nitrogen. That's the one they all have in common. Number 11. In addition to being found in DNA, blank is involved in the metabolic processes responsible for transferring blank from one point to another in the plant. It's also critical in root development and flowering. Well, let's see if we can figure that one out. Which one is important? Oh, here, transferring energy. That's right. So that one's phosphorus. It transfers energy. So let's get that one written in. So right here, phosphorus is involved in the metabolic processes responsible for transferring, and we'll write, oops, trying to get a new one to pop up. Come on. Energy from one point to another in the plant. It's also critical in root development and flowering. Awesome. Number 12, which element is needed for water pressure regulation? That's that hypertonic, hypotonic thing. Which one was that? Oh, right. It's the letter K, potassium. That's it. Oh, let me pause for just a second. Somebody's at my door. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So then it says, which element is needed for water pressure regulation? And we said that was potassium, the letter K. Oops, it'd be nice if I spelled it right. Potassium. Okay, so finally, we're near the end, you guys. How does a cell use these atoms? Which four types of molecules are considered macromolecules? Again, that's what we're going to listen for. So let's read on. How does a cell use these atoms? To build new cells, the plant must build many macromolecules. Let me pause. Why does anything need to build more cells? Well, that's so that it can grow or it can heal or it can fight disease. So that's why we're adding more cells. A baby doesn't have as many cells as you and I do. So we're adding cells so that we can grow. Okay, so to build new cells, the plant must build many macromolecules. The prefix macro means big, and then molecule is all the atoms put together. The macromolecules include, we learned about all of them, proteins, remember the amino acids together, DNA stored in your nucleus, fats like the lipids, do you remember the saturated and unsaturated fats? And carbohydrates, that's like the sugars and starch and cellulose. So let's write those down because that's right here. That's one of our questions. So the four types, I'll do them in the order I remember. Carbohydrates and lipids, the fats, and DNA. And then the last one we learned about in our notes was proteins from class. We learned about that. Okay, and then just so we know what to listen for, blank is the term used for the elements N, P, S, and K that are not involved in photosynthesis and must be obtained by the plant in some other way. So let's see what that is. We already know how glucose is produced through photosynthesis. We learned about that. Glucose could provide the C, H, and O atoms needed to make all these other molecules. So we have glucose, the plant has glucose, and it can pull the glucose apart and make the DNA, the part of the DNA that needs CH and O, and it can make the part of the protein that needs CH and O, and it can make the part of fats that needs CH and O. But what about the other elements that are needed for, in particular, proteins and DNA? So glucose could provide the CH and O atoms needed to make these macromolecules, but the tree would still need a few other types of atoms, specifically N, P, S, and K to make all the macromolecules. These additional elements are referred to, oh, there's our word, as minerals. How do you suppose plants obtain these elements? Well, that's a mystery you're going to have to solve yourselves. I bet you can figure it out. Okay, so the word we're looking for this time is minerals. And now let's go ahead and try number 15. And I don't think I'm going to give you an answer to number 15. I want you to write it down yourselves. So number 15 says, we're doing a prediction here. Where do you think the plant gets the atoms N, P, S, and K? So it gets C, H, and O from photosynthesis. And I want you to understand how that happens, right? The plant is sucking up carbon dioxide, right, out of the air. So that's your C and your O. And then it's pulling water up its roots. So that's where the H and more O comes from. So that's where we're getting our CH and O. How does the plant get N, P, S, and K? And I'm going to let you figure that out. If it's not through the air, where must those things be coming from? So you guessed for number 15. All right, and then number 16, pause me if you need to take a moment to write number 15. Why is it important to fix soil or to, if you're a gardener, to adjust the soil if it's lacking in N, nitrogen, P, phosphorus, or K, potassium? Well, right, we remember that those are critical for DNA and for proteins and other things. So in other words, what would happen to a plant that didn't have access to these elements? So let's look at the reading. What would happen to a plant that didn't have nitrogen? So we've got a couple things that we know. Let's go back here. Nitrogen is needed for proteins and DNA, so it wouldn't have proteins or DNA. It's associated with leafy growth, so it wouldn't have good leaves. And who remembers what color it would turn? Nitrogen gives it their green color, so it would turn yellow. Okay, so let's write those things down. I got to see if I can remember them without looking. So it's needed for proteins and DNA and leaf growth, and it would turn yellow. So the plant couldn't make proteins, DNA, or new leaves, comma, and it would turn yellow. Yellow. Perfect. All right, phosphorus. Let's take a look. What would happen if the soil didn't have phosphorus in it? So, in addition to being found in DNA, well, that's going to be a problem. If there's no phosphorus, the plant can't make its DNA, can't do anything then. Phosphorus is involved in the metabolic processes responsible for transferring energy. Oh, so it's going to have low energy. Do plants need energy? Sure, they do. They just don't use as much energy as we do, but they need energy to grow and to do the things that plants do, like make flowers and that kind of thing. Okay, and it's also critical in root development and flowering. So, no DNA, low energy, and poor roots and flowers. So, let's see if we can write that all down. The plant couldn't make DNA, and it would be low energy with poor roots, and I suddenly forgot what the other thing was. Poor roots and flowers. Poor roots and flowers. So it wouldn't flower well. So if you want good flowers, make sure that your fertilizer has phosphorus in it. All right, last one, and then we're all done, everybody. Potassium. Let's see what potassium does again. Remind ourselves. Plants also need large amounts of an element called potassium. Potassium is found by itself, not in combination with other atoms in a molecule. Potassium helps regulate plant metabolism and affects water pressure regulation inside and outside of plant cells. It's also important for good root development. So we need potassium. The plant needs potassium. Let's see if I can sum it up again. So the water pressure would be off. There would be poor roots, and it wouldn't respond, or it would have trouble with stress. What is plant stress? They don't get stressed out about things, do they? Sure they do. They get stressed out when there's drought. They get stressed out when the temperatures are bad, and they get stressed out when insects or bugs or humans damage them. So they have a lot of stress, probably as much stress as we have. And if they don't have potassium, they don't respond well to those stresses. Okay, so let's say it again. So we need water pressure, root development. So the plant would have trouble with water pressure, root development, and it would not respond. Let me get my image out of the way, everybody. It would not, I'm going to say be able. Come on. It would not be able to respond well. Give me a second. I'm going to make this cut off. There we go. Respond well to stress, like drought, extreme temps, or pests. I'll call us pests. So insects, humans, birds, anybody attacking it, whatever, those would be pests. Okay, everybody, I believe that's our last thing. So now, if you did the paper version, take a photo of it and upload it to Canvas so that you get credit for it. If you did the digital version, then you just need to get it saved to Canvas. You also need to move it over to Canvas. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, have a great rest of your day.